setting up your MyFitnessPal. Here are your tabs when you log into your account on MyFitnessPal. The one that I'm on right now is settings. So this is the one that you want to start with. And so you click on settings, brings you to this one here. This is where you would change all your information as needed. But the main one that you want to look at is goals. Click on goals, and this brings up your options. Let me go back here, settings. So, okay, so under diary settings, so when you click on settings, choose, go back to settings so that you can see what I'm talking about. So we've got your diary settings. This is where you'll decide what you want to track. Now I'm using the premium version. The free version may not have all these details, but I can't remember because it's been a while. But you can choose from the drop down which macro you want to, or nutrient you want to track. So I've got carbohydrates, fats, proteins, sugars, and potassium. You could, like, some people would, maybe choose salt or whatever, but I think choosing sugars is good because then you keep track of what kind of sugars, because some of your vegetables and things do have naturally occurring sugars in them, as well as, other foods, and so it helps to know just how high in sugar content they really are. Potassium, because potassium is one of those minerals that we just don't get enough of, so it helps to be able to track how much of it you're getting in your food, because the more you can get from your food, the better. So we've got the macronutrients and diet. I've got that checked. This gives you a breakdown. And this also, when you look at it on your phone, will show you a pie chart of how you're doing for the day, which is really, really helpful to kind of keep track of what your meals are doing for you. You can add your meal names here. It starts out, I think, with 3, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We only eat 2 meals a day, so I changed it for breakfast, dinner, and snacks. You can check here to enable negative adjustments, which if you have a tracker, a Fitbit, or a Garmin, I have the Garmin, and that's one reason I use MyFitnessPal, because it talks to my Garmin. You can check this, and then throughout the day, as you exercise, walk around and stuff and burn calories, your Garmin will talk to the MyFitnessPal, and it'll adjust your numbers according to your workout. I don't do it because I want to stay within my strict macros, and I don't suggest people do it unless they can just overlook the number. It can get confusing, so I just don't check it. So you would save your changes here if you have anything that you've changed, and then you would go over to goals once this is set up. This is where you're going to change your daily goals. Now, I don't think that this is available in the free version. I think you do have to have the premium, and I would suggest getting premium. It really is worth the extra. I think it's $49 for a year, and it really is. I like it. I think it's worth it. So this is where you would set up what you're going to track. I have everything here. I think is auto added. I may have adjusted this according to what I found in research as the optimum amount for potassium, but this I think is auto set. So if you see anything over here that's got an off number, then just go in and hit edit. Here is where, and this is what I think makes the premium version the best, because otherwise you have to track by percentages. I don't recommend percentages because it can be off. So based on whatever your macros got set up at to begin with, you'd click edit, and you'd go in and you can hard set. You can set by percentage, which this is what it would look like. But I don't like that, so I set by gram. And I'm almost positive you don't have the option to set by gram in the free version. So I set mine every day because I use our tracker tool. Now this comes with our meal plans, so this is not something that you have access to unless you're on our paid meal plans. But this is what the tracker tool looks like. Every day I enter my weight. It gives me a scale like this. Once a week or so, I'll do my measurements, and then you could put your measurements here. But each day, you have the option, or you look at your numbers, and this adjusts based on your daily weight. So this goes up or down, and you can adjust your macros here accordingly. Otherwise, you just use the regular tracker, and you can do that. We recommend about once every 10 pounds rerunning your macros, or if you just completely at a stall or whatever, you might want to rerun them. But anyway, so based on my daily numbers is what I put in here, and then save. That gives me how many calories I need for that day, made up of my carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And you could break it down by meal, but I don't typically do that. And let's see here. So this is just fitness. I really don't pay much attention to that. But once I've got this set up, then over here on the food, this is where you're going to enter your foods. And let's just enter. Let's say, and then also it'll save whatever you've been entering. So every morning I have pretty much the same exact breakfast. So I just tick off all of these. Sometimes I have an egg, sometimes I don't. So I'm just going to go ahead and add egg for today, just so you can see what I'm doing here. So this is what it looks like once you've added your food, and it gives you your calories, your carb count, fat count, protein count, sugars, and potassium. And then down here, you can see that the goals that you set, it shows right here. Now, if you're not using the daily tracker and setting this each day, then this would remain the same for however long until you reset your macros. And then it tells you how much you've had here, and then what you've got left over here. Now, if you had if you had ticked off the exercise thing where it gives you the negative numbers, then this is going to go up accordingly. So if you're doing a lot of exercise, all of a sudden you may have 1,500 calories showing for your daily goal, and 20 carbs for your daily goal, and so on and so on. So this is why I do not set that hard set, because I want to see that number throughout the day. I can play with these numbers, but I don't want to play with these numbers. So anyway, once you do that, then it shows you. So now you know, you've got kind of an idea of where your next meal is going to be, or your next 2 meals if you're eating 2 a day. Ray and I only have 2 meals a day, and we usually stop around 3:30, 4 at the very latest to eat. And then this is where you're going to put your water. I think it holds 3 different sizes. You can update that, but that's my big mug that I drink out of, 33 ounces. So whenever I have one of those, I just tick that off, and it does that. And it'll continue to add that throughout the day. So if I had 2, I typically have 3 a day, so that's about what I have on top of my coffee, which is 40 ounces. So you see I get plenty of liquids during the day. Okay, so let's add something that's not already in the... Okay, so let's just say we're having chicken. So I'm just going to type in generic chicken. And it's going to bring up, and this can vary widely because you have individuals putting this information in. And so if you find something and you have a question about it, I always Google it to double check. So let's just say, okay, so Kroger chicken, we bought it at Kroger's or the grocery store. So, just assume this is grocery store chicken, whatever your grocery store name is. And I like to weigh everything I eat. And so I always look for grams. And if you can't find it readily, you can type in chicken and then gram. Don't put an S, because when you do, it'll show you a plural, which is weird because when you do the plural, it jumps that. Now it'll show you that you've eaten, at 35,000 calories or something. It's weird. Anyway, just gram. And so you want to look for the 1 gram, no S on this. And let's just say it was 125 grams. So that's how you would enter that, and then you'd add it to your dinner. And it will tell you how much calories, carbs, fat, protein, and sugar it had. It had no sugar. So my goal is to keep this at 0. When I'm eating vegetables, it's almost impossible to do because almost every vegetable has some sugars in it. But if you're going to have sugars, that's where you're going to get it from. Don't have added sugars. And let's see here. So I'm going to add, let's just do spinach, because we eat a lot of spinach. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about with vegetables. All right, so we typically saute it. Let me see. So I would go through here and kind of look around and see if I can find one that's probably sauteed of some kind. So it's in cups. I don't want to do it in cups, so what I'll do is go back here and I'll type in gram. And then it gives me, okay, steamed. That's what I usually pick, is steamed. Now you see it starts with 84 grams. You don't want that. You want 1 gram. And then depending on what you weighed it out at, so let's just say 100 grams of steamed spinach. And so here we go. That one didn't have any sugars in it, so let me find a, let's see here, I think that, I think Brussels sprouts has. Okay, and we want grams, so I'm going to type in gram and do it again. And let's see here, a lot of times we have roasted Brussels sprouts, so let's do those. And see, now it doesn't have that, so I'm going to go over here and find a different one and see if it does. Okay, it does not have gram. And so you do have to kind of look through the list here till you find one that will show you grams. And it's not always easy to find them, so I may have to just go to, okay, so I have to go to fresh, which is, it's not that big a deal. So Brussels sprouts, let's do 150 grams of Brussels sprouts. Okay, so it has sugars. So you're going to see here then, so we've got calories, carbs, it's fairly high in carbs, but these are the cruciferous vegetables, and they're very good for you. So when you think about carbs or think about sugars, make sure you're getting them from your vegetables and not from processed foods, grains, desserts, all that kind of stuff. You will really want your carbs and your sugars to be from your vegetables, because these your body needs. And so even though they do have carbs, it's still, that's where you're going to want to get it. But for me, that looks a little high for Brussels sprouts. So when that happens, then I will get on Google and I will Google it just to double check, because a lot of the foods, if not all of the foods, I think they have a general database, and this goes for any tracker. It's not going to be just MyFitnessPal, Carb Manager. They all have probably a general database, and then everything else is added by users. Well, you have to assume that the user, or hope that the user is putting the information in correctly. If they're not, then you should be able to tell it's off a little bit. So if there's ever anything that you question, then go to Google and type it in, and here we can see that it has 8 grams of carbs and it has some sugars in it. So that's probably pretty accurate. So I'm going to leave it like it is, but I wanted to double check it just because it did look a little high. So maybe you don't have 150 grams of Brussels sprouts, you have 75 grams or something to bring that down some. But again, your vegetables are important, so don't ignore your vegetables because you're concerned about this right here. Just try to manage them. So let's say, okay, so let's just we had Brussels sprouts that day and not spinach. So see, that brings my numbers back down to a normal number. But here, when you go over any of these, you'll see it in red. So that tells you. So since my goal for sugars is 0, and the Brussels sprouts had 3 grams of sugars, it shows 3 over. So anyway, this is how you keep track of your daily stuff in MyFitnessPal. If you have any questions, you can email me or message me, and I will try to answer them. But anyway, it's pretty simple, and the more you use it, the simpler it gets.